Have you ever wondered how Aaron Paul won 3 Emmys for his acting in Breaking Bad? Or why Gus Fring is one of the best villains in all of television? Why does their acting pull you in so much? Well, don't worry, sweethearts, because as someone that's reviewed hundreds of different actors, today we're gonna deeply analyze every single person's acting in Breaking Bad so we can rank them on this tier list. And listen to my next words carefully. Some of the secret techniques these actors use are so powerful, yet most of you didn't even notice them. Starting off with Walter White, acted by Bryan Cranston. First, let's look at his secret past role and how they developed his tremendous acting in Breaking Bad, because this next sentence is probably gonna blow your mind. His earlier roles are nothing like Walter White. He actually became famous for funny comedy roles. Oh, what? He started acting in 1984, playing a crazy dentist in the famous sitcom Seinfeld. But you could also analyze some of the Walter White foundations building up, trying to act bold with his body language while covering it up with a sarcastic smile you always see. So 16 years later, when AMC would call him up for Breaking Bad, there are 4 hidden reasons he stood out as a great actor. Firstly, whenever he gets angry, there are various subtle things he does that give off a realistic anger. Take a look at episode 2x9. Sure, there's the obvious things like the strong hand movements, the angry yelling, but also analyze how he slightly jitters his head at the end. Something a human would only do when they literally can't bottle their emotions anymore. And just a couple episodes later, you can observe the head movements combined with that very aggressive yelling. But plain body language isn't the only thing that shows dominance, because the second reason behind his success is how he dominates with his tone. Let's examine episode 4x6 in his viral speech. It's the pauses and the changes in tone that's attractive. Captivating way he forces some specific words, like when he says, "I'm the one who knocks."
You clearly don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in. I am not in danger, Skyler. I am the danger. A guy opens his door and gets shot, and you think that of me? No. I am the one who knocks.
And his magical voice doesn't stop there, because in other instances like this one where he's drunk and very angry, we see a very different Walter White. He wants to show that he is the man, he can do whatever he wants, and you can hear that anger come directly from the throat.
My son. My bottle, my house.
And pay attention to how dead his eyes look here. It reminds me of Anthony Starr and how he creates the exact same effect by just being like this. But is anger all Walter White can show? Baby girls, absolutely not, because he has a lot more up his sleeve. So now let's talk about his emotional sadness. It's hard to notice, but watch episode 4x1 when Walt's pleading for Gus not to kill him. His watery eyes along with his forceful blinking truly gives off a man fearing for his life to really sold the fact that he is actually sorry for going against Gus. Not a simple, "I'm sorry, bro, just leave me alone." It's like I apologize. It's that. You can also notice his body language here isn't stiff like when he's angry. It's more fluid and loose, which reflects the worry in him. But let's get even sadder, because his best sadness came in at episode 4x10, and everything is going downhill. I want you guys to lay your eyes on his lip. Look how fast they start twitching. This by itself is so wildly impressive because of how rapid it is. He can't fathom what is going on in his life. But also, unlike the last sad scene, in this one he is so broken down that his eyes are practically closed. They're not, you can't even see them. And Bryan deciding to act this scene in this way is excellent. But now let's dive away from the obvious. Any person with even one eye could probably pick up on these things that I'm talking about. So let's talk about scenes that no one talks about because of how subtle they are. Episode 5x8, when he tells his wife he's out of the business. There's some new subtle things that help his emotion. Examine the way he's about to say more, but he stops himself. And also track his nervous eyes looking everywhere but at her direct. And he does a lot more missable things near the ending of the show. For example, when Walt is snapping back at his murderous wife. This entire argument is so hectic and the emotions are so high. And you can see his entire lower mouth is trembling, shaking with fear. He's so rattled by what's going on, and this is a reflection of that.
What the hell is wrong with you? We're a family!
And to be honest, in this exact episode, just a couple minutes later, his wife maybe does the best acting in the entire show, but we'll actually talk more about it when we get to her. Bryan Cranston, you did everything exceptional, but compared to some of the other actors we're gonna talk about today, I wouldn't consider you the best, so you're gonna go in amazing. And unfortunately, now let's talk about an actor who won't get the same praise as well. Someone who kind of struggles with expression and just does a good enough job. We're talking about Hank, played by Norris, and his various flaws. This man has had a crazy past. He started acting in 1985 and he was born to play an officer. Look at the insane amount of times you can see a policing type of role in his Wikipedia. It's actually insane. And after watching all of his old roles that made me literally want to physically hurt myself, because it's so old. You can see his acting is nothing great in the beginning, but he's learning how to play in an intense environment. In Lethal Weapon 2, he'd follow the steps of his much larger co-stars and he'd sort of shadow how they do things, which would make him talented enough to land a much bigger role, a lieutenant in Starship Troopers. And now we can see that furrowed eyebrow, that smug look a snobby lieutenant would have. And these unique abilities helped him stand out so much that eventually he'd land himself in Breaking Bad, exactly 11 years late. Pay attention to my following word. It's very important you listen to what I'm about to say. There are two specific scenes in this show that you overlook, which will show you why his acting isn't anything spectacular. The first one, episode 3x4. In confrontations, you'll usually see him like this, in a very stiff manner as he stares out with dead eyes. And although his character is meant to be this nonchalant person all the time, I feel like these scenes lack energy, like they're a little too mellowed down. He doesn't use any other face muscles here, which takes away from his ability, because you can play a nonchalant character but still have emotion showing underneath. Going back to Anthony Starr, he's one of the best nonchalant characters because he'll also be dead, but he'll add these subtle things like pushing his frown a little harder or quivering his cheeks, but none of that is present here, and it doesn't get better. In the same episode, his boss shuts him down from continuing his case, and his response doesn't have a sliver of a reaction. In season 5, things do turn around, where you can see he's now involved his breathing into his nervous acting, how he's looking around anxiously as he gets told about his promotion, and just an episode later, he listens to my YouTube videos because of course he watches me and he's actually a subscriber of mine, so all of you should also subscribe. But this results in his expressions getting amped up, like when he finally snaps in the shower. Examine the way he rapidly blinks. You can see he's building up all this frustration inside of his body. The way he looks around agitated, waving his hand around like a crazy man in the shower. His investigation on Walter White is slowly getting to him.
I don't blame you.
You late for work or something? And Mexico doesn't have a damn thing to do with it. Anyone who doubts that. I mean, I'm doing some actual good out here, and all I get are these bullshit accusations.
So there's definitely some talent, and you can also see it in the DEA moment when he gets kicked out. What a terrific, beautiful cry this is right here. It's splendid. I can see your talent hidden underneath, but it just isn't there yet, which is why you're gonna be the first actor we put in good. However, now things get interesting, because we have to figure out if Hank's wife, Marie, shares the exact same fate. Well, yes and no. Let me explain. Marie is acted by 51-year-old Betsy Brandt, who graduated from Harvard with a master's degree. Her first acting role ever was in 2001 in a law-related show called Judging Amy, and surprisingly, her acting was very, very solid for a first role. The way she looks off to the side, her little pauses here, you can literally see her eyes having this built-up emotion, which would carry on into her next role 3 years later, another legal type of role. So if an actor is this good this early, what happens if you let them simmer and learn for 6 more years? Things are about to get crazy as we uncover her acting as Marie, because shockingly, in the earlier seasons of the show, just like her husband, she lacks that complete emotion. When she's ranting to Skyler about her life problems, the only thing that's doing the talking is her words and the slightly watery eyes. But I'd love to see a lot more gestures and eyebrows get into play. With that being said, she is very strong when it comes to her vocals, and here's the 2 main ways she uses. Firstly, when she's tremendously sad, like episode 4x3, her breath becomes so rapid, and overall the slow transition into eventually stiffly breaking down here was so natural and realistic, like how a real human would do this. And the second way she uses her vocals is when she wants to get snappy. Examine when she snaps at the DEA for taking away Hank's gun. This would lead to him eventually getting shot, and that anger is reflected. Her vocals are great. She's snappy, loud, and clear.
Instead of taking their guns, not supporting them, not backing them up when they're... Marie.
And then when she wants to stab deep, she gets into the scary whisper that I really, really like.
It's their fault. He didn't have a gun.
Closing the scene off with this stern raised eyebrow, and these micro expressions would carry on into the final season where we slowly see even more improvements. The way she's naturally interrupting herself, unable to even complete a sentence after hearing that Skyler was having an affair, it is miraculous. How she nervously looks away, does that fake smile. For these reasons, I do think Marie, the wife, is better than Hank, but still in the same category of good. Your best scenes are the equivalent of a normal scene for actors like Bryan or Aaron Paul. Speaking of Aaron Paul, you guys saw what I did there, like Aaron Paul, and now we're gonna talk about him. Now let's get serious and talk about the Emmy winner himself. How does one man play a role so well that he wins 3 Emmys in 3 different years for one role in Breaking Bad? Let's find out by first starting off with his unique backstory, because to get his name out, Aaron Paul would work in literally everything, from Fruit Loop commercials to very edgy music videos, to also playing a geeky kid in a high school show called Whatever It Takes, a role that would be very important because it would make him comfortable being a degenerate low-life kid, exactly like Jesse Pinkman. But here's the weird thing, light-hearted roles like this aren't what won him his Emmy, and it also certainly wasn't his lover boy role, because looking at this clip, Big Love by ABC Network, he's such a boring basic boy, no emotion, no expression. So what changed in Breaking Bad? Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention because what I'm about to say is very crucial. Aaron won these Emmys because he has mastered the art of crashing out, completely going maniac in the best possible way. But before we go into the deep science behind his emotional acting as Jesse, here's some surface level things you probably missed. Like, have you ever noticed he very occasionally forces the last part of his sentence, which makes his speech sound a lot more desperate?
And think of something scientific. Man, you're smart. Or you made poison out of beans, yo.
And the reason it's so impactful is because it lets you feel how distressed Jesse must be feeling being stuck on a van with a bald man. Whoa! Oh my god! That rhymed! But next, let's get even deeper when we talk about his anxiety. He'll force his voice the same way, but he'll also now involve heavy, fast breathing that's so loud it clouds the entire moment. His girlfriend's brother is fighting for his life, something Jesse is not equipped to handle at all. And just really quickly, also watch these robotic head turns he does. He'll mutter his words to complement the scene, and you'll barely even hear him saying specific parts like, I gotta go.
This is tough, Gunn. Rice. Right, it sounds like rice. You need to tell the doctors about it. Rice, don't know what you're talking about. I gotta go see someone.
Jesse!
Look, I'm sorry, I gotta go.
And that's most of the basics, but now let's talk about the Emmy winners. Aaron Paul's maniac emotional moments. Starting off with maybe the saddest moment in the show when Jesse's girlfriend dies and Walt finds him in a complete drugged mess. This is such an instinctive display of loss, and I want you guys to put yourself in these shoes. Is this how you would react to finding out the love of your life has just died? Because the way his body just limps on Walt, how you can hear the most devastating broken cry, it's nothing overly loud or reapy, but just broken. It's generally some of the best vocal work I think I've ever watched.
I loved her more than anything.
I also love how he doesn't physically open his eye here even once. He can't even face the world with eyes open. At a fundamental level, he has ruptured his soul. That is what you're seeing here. And this vocal work is used differently in season 3, where you can hear the way he screeched at Walt while being on the verge of tears. Zoom in on the fast lip twitching and the murmur you can hear in the back of his voice. What makes his cries so special is it looks like his tears are fighting to come out. You can see them build in the pupils themselves, which made the entire hectic scene of him killing the chemist so touching. Remember the lip twitching he did when he shouted at Walt? Well, he brings it back, but 10 times harder in episode 5x11, where you can see he's evolved into a genuine bulldog. Here he is spazzing out at Saul for stealing his rice and cigarette, and where do I even begin? His anger shines because of his mouth. Watch how his teeth are so exposed, how he's basically growling with a sweaty face, and his mouth is hanging open. These wide, restless faces that set him totally apart. And looking at the show's second last ever episode, when his new baby girl Andrea gets shot, all these old techniques are present once again, so you can truly see how he's improved over time in these dramatics. Sweetheart, there is genuinely no reason that Aaron Paul doesn't deserve an Oscar-worthy rank, which is why he'll be our first Oscar actor in this list.
Aaron Paul, Breaking Bad.
Now, before we talk about another actor that very much has a shot at Oscar worthy, let's see if Jesse's lover, Jane, got any of the acting talent rubbed off on her. She is played by Krysten Ritter, the only Breaking Bad actor to somehow enter the Marvel world as Jessica Jones. An accomplishment like this must clearly mean she has some sort of skill, so let's look for it by analyzing her past work and her druggy self in Breaking Bad. She'd start in Veronica Mars and plays a very happy rich girl, and she'd do the exact same in Gilmore. So why cast someone with past experience that's so different from what Jane queen is? Well, sweethearts, let's find out in Breaking Bad. At the basic level, look at the way she flutters her eyes. It's like a girl that's just given up. She is tired of fighting.
That's exactly what I need, to be judged all the time.
She also has this very interesting technique where she keeps bringing her chin down and sort of look up at the person from this view. It's a very unique thing that brings out her soft side, and I don't see many other actors do. She also exhibits very good druggy behavior by constantly looking down and away from the person. A quick Google search will tell you any intoxicated person, the biggest sign is always random jittery movement. She studied this and she do it constantly throughout the show, and I really wish she got more screen time and Walt didn't have to kill her so I could give her a better evaluation, but with the limited scenes we have, she's gonna go in good. What? Oh! He just killed her! But this next actor, I feel very bad for. Many people overlook her, and it's so important you listen to the next words I'm about to say. This next female actor might be the best actor in the entire show of Breaking Bad, which is why there is no surprise she is still thriving in her acting career to this day, landing hit Apple TV shows like Sugar. We are talking about Anna Gunn, who acts Skyler, who, to be honest, looking at her past record, she was always gonna be a star, and here's why. After digging through for days and finding her first role ever in 1992 in Quantum Leap, her face already has that sarcastic, artificial look to it, exactly how Skyler would do it. The way she slowly breaks eye contact here, that little half smile, these eyes tell a story that, I'm being serious, no first-time actor can usually tell, which is why there's no surprise the world knew she was talented, and she couldn't stop landing hit roles every single year since. For example, NYPD Blue as Kimmy, a role that would further her nervous, shy acting even further. For example, here when she's crying because she was caught in a case, it's done so naturally. It's not an overly done cry, and it's mainly done using her lips, that little smile she does. And keep in mind, all of this is going on still 14 years before Breaking Bad would ever get announced. So how much better can she get 14 years later? Well, let's find out by discussing her magic in Breaking Bad. Firstly, there's several subtle things she does to enhance her act. Here, you can see she's being hesitant with the fast lip quiver and how her nose is very slightly running. Add in the fact that she won't even make eye contact with her manager, and it's a very intense moment. It's actually very talentful how controlled her lips are, because in season 3, inspect how her mouth stays open when Walt breaks the news about his secret business. Open just so slightly, giving that lip twitch room to move. It is so calculated and I love it. Now I can go on about these nervous twitches, blah blah, but I want to ask you guys an important question. If you watch this scene right here, the famous pool scene in episode 5x4, why do you think it's so sinister? Like it's straight out of a horror movie. Many people talked about how it was such a thrilling performance, but why? What made this special? If you guys don't remember, Skyler White is trying to end her life by drowning herself, basically because she really can't handle the pressure of Walt's business, like everything is going very downhill. But the scene hits because of her micro adjustments, like the very small eye twitches, her lip naturally resting in a frown, and how her face genuinely looks soulless, like there is nothing in, as she walks into the pool to eventually drown herself. Of course, let's not pretend the cinematography itself didn't help. The way it zoomed in on the pool, that was also great, but her acting is what sold the entire moment. Now, before we dive into even more psychological moments, another thing I want to point out is Anna Gunn has very piercing eye contact, which is important because it helps tell a story. In her first role, she was already doing this, but here it's 100 times better. She has so much variety because she can be seductive and say happy birthday to her boss because she's a cheater and be all like, happy birthday, with those piercing eyes, but in the same exact episode a couple minutes later, she'll show concern by changing her eyes. It's clear Anna Gunn loves doing these very secretive moves, and another great one would have to be when she's about to rat Walter out to the police. Look how nervously her hands are while she's holding the phone. She's not overdoing them and jittering all around, but there's a genuine nervousness showed through her hand, a human bodily reaction. You can see in her eyes that she's contemplating if she should really do it, and these hands would continue to tremble while she wipes away her tears. It's wow. All of Skyler moments we've talked about so far are up here. So now let's bring it all the way up here. Let's talk about her best of the best acting, because one of her strong suit when it comes to this is her vocals. Take a look at episode 5x10 and just listen to the way she snaps at Hank asking if she's under arrest, because here Hank is trying to get evidence from her to lock Walter up, but she actually pushes back on this and it leads to her trembling in her boots and that very emotional cry as she walks off.
Are you arresting me? Am I under arrest?
And then 10 minutes later in the exact same episode when she's apologizing to Murray about this, listen to this beautiful repeated trembling. Oh my god. Oh my... It is so important to the scene because it captures how emotional, how sad she must have felt to keep these secrets from her own sister. But now let's get even juicier somehow. Let's turn our eyes to the last couple episodes of the show. For example, the instance where Walt takes the baby from the house. This was in episode 5x14, the one that was rated perfectly by everyone in the world ever, and it's for hectic moments like this. Think about if you guys were a parent and your child gets stolen from you by your drug dealing significant other. Think about how you must be feeling. That bold acting is what she shows here. Her body language in this yelling is crazy. The way she runs after the car, her cries genuinely sound like a devil unleashing through her body. It's amazing.
No! Let her go! Please, no! Whoa! Please, no!
And even when the car is long gone, the way she falls to the floor, the rapid mouth movement, The only scene in the show that might come close to this is when she tells her own sister to nicely close her mouth.
Hey. Shut the hell up! Shut up! Shut up!
Skyler,
shut up!
please
Shut up!
stop.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Hi guys, do you guys want to move my mouse for me and just put her ranking where it goes? Like, I feel like we all know where the ranking is gonna go. Just do it. Do it. Anna Gunn, there is no other place to put you besides Oscar worthy. Now there is one more actor we're gonna talk about today that even has a shot of also making it an Oscar worthy. Feel free to take a guess in the comments below right now, and also subscribe while you're down there, because if you don't, I'm gonna have to send Gustavo Fring after you, and you don't want that, right? So do it. Oh, I'm a good actor too. Oh my god, I'm a good actor. Oh my god. Now, before we talk about a potential Oscar-worthy actor, let's address some honorable mentions to see if these side characters have anything special. Starting with Saul Goodman, his crazy backstory and very different talent. As you guys know, he is the only actor in the entire show that's not a deep, scarred person, and instead he plays a jumpy, enthusiastic, happy lawyer. Instead of all the dark acting we've been covering today, let's get happy for a second and talk about how Bob Odenkirk plays this smug role effortlessly, because the secret is actually in his lip. You'll see him purposely keep that one-sided smile on his face, which gives off the arrogance. On top of that, he's also constantly moving his head around like every second, literally all the time, which is a smart acting trick which keeps his character in a jumpy vibe. But baby girls, you know what's crazy? The reason he knows how to play such a great lighthearted role dates back to the 1970s when he'd work on comedy sketches with Conan O'Brien, the late night host himself.
We go way back.
We go way back. We wrote together at Saturday Night Live, and we actually shared an office.
This is back in the late 1950s when that show was first. It was a radio show then.
He's literally had 30 years of learning experience on how to be this bubbly person, and he'd even go on to create his own 4-season comedy show called Mr. Show, which further boosted his expertise in this niche. And when you have this much experience for this long, you don't need to audition for Breaking Bad, you just get the role.
They shouldn't have put me on Breaking Bad. I did nothing to earn
How did that come about?
Nothing. I didn't audition for it.
Okay, were you
audition for it?
But now someone who's the very opposite of jumpy is Mike, acted out by Jonathan Banks. There's not much to say about him, and we're getting closer to the Oscar-worthy actor, but I wanted to mention him because I very much love the way he told his story. They'd be very impactful because he'd talk in a calm manner, physically doing his best to minimize any body language or facial expression. He looks sternly out at Walt, and you'd think like other actors he'd emphasize specific words, change his tone, but all of it was said in the same relaxing manner. And the reason I brought this up is because this type of acting suits Jonathan Banks and his face. Many other actors, if they told a story like this, it would be called boring, tiresome, unengaging, but now you see a real life example on why specific people can pull off specific moves. And this same nonchalant Jonathan Banks would also take out Don Eladius and his crew in episode 4x10, where there is one other mystery person present in this scene. A calculated person, a stoic person. A person that is easily the richest actor in the entire show, Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Gustavo Fring. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, because this could easily be the third Oscar-worthy actor. But first, let's cut to Kosho 2 months ago, who explains how this phenomenal actor got his start. He started off acting at only 10 years old in Broadway, so long ago that no footage remains.
Why can't I find footage? Why can't I find footage?
And he would dominate and focus on Broadway throughout most of his youth, all the way up until around 1980s. Eventually, he'd land himself in the big screens, landing popular movies for that age like Maximum Overdrive and King of New York. As you can see, even as a 16-year-old, Broadway surely taught him how to have expression. He moves his body well, his face twitches very rapidly in this funny scene, which was still good for that time period. 10 years after that, he'd find his success after he meets a very important man. This man would be a director named Spike Lee, who focused on black community issues, which was the exact category Giancarlo would explode in, making 4 movies with spikes such as Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X, which was such a huge boost for his name. Now here's where things get juicy. Because of his popularity in the black culture space, he easily landed a role in the crime drama homicide Life in the Street. His first time ever entering the police/authority type of role, and he would crush it here, showing off strong seriousness and ability to play a professional role very well. He held this role for the longest time out of anything in his career yet, and these type of roles would eventually land him 15 years later after so much hard work in AMC's Breaking Bad. He would play the character Gustavo Fring, and it's known as one of the best acting performances of all time. Welcome back, sweethearts. Did you guys miss me? Yeah? Okay, good. Let's now explore the 2 secret ways Giancarlo gives out a mastermind drug lord performance. The first way is this very special method involving his eyebrows that help him swap between a happy Los Polos manager and the drug lord. Looking at season 2, when Walt first met Gus, in the beginning, Gus is holding his eyebrows very high to show a positive fast food manager. But now, examine the miraculous way his eyebrows fell when Walt knew he was the drug lord.
That way.
This move brought his serious nature out, and combined with his slow speech, it was such a big change. Same thing happened in the next season when Walt rejected Gus's $3 million deal. Really pay attention here, especially in the eye area. After he gets rejected, he gets angry through his little eyebrow flex, but maintains his clean image with those raised eyebrows and happy smiles again, literally moving in such a robotic way. Listen to what I'm saying, this is not how humans deal with rejection, and it's straight out of a Jordan Peele type of move. He do this exact same thing again when he insists on Walt putting a tracker on his own car.
Didn't do it. Do it. May I help you with your order?
And it's very impressive that he plays these dominating leader roles differently depending on the project. Like in Maze Runner, he's also a leader, but he uses a lot more expressions and quicker movement. But what's even more impressive is his understanding that it's not all about the eyebrows and facial movements. Sometimes less is more. In episode 3x12, where he wants to be strict with Jesse, he does none of the other stuff we talked about. There are no eye movements and there are no eyebrow flickers. He wants to discipline Jesse for almost running over and killing his men, so he only uses his slow speech to set very clear boundaries. What this did is very clever. It showed Gus's internal frustration in a very intense room. When I watched the scene for the first time, his dead look choked up the entire room. Everybody became on edge, and it's because when someone is so angry and pushed to that level, there sometimes isn't even a reaction. It's literally just them processing this stuff in their mind. But let's make these things even more interesting. When Gustavo isn't in power and isn't in control, you get a very different type of reaction. Like in this meeting with Don and Lydia. Since he's in a vulnerable state here, he's a lot more expression. He talks faster, his mouth moves more, along with the very rapid eye blink. And for the first time ever, something nobody probably noticed, his chin drops. A full subtle sign of submission. When you're submitting down, you're kind of just like dropping your chin. As Gustavo Fring, he would never think to go down. He always has this high level posture, and when this escalates into the final moments of the episode, that higher level of expression you can see here. The exaggerated open mouth, the way he's gasping for air while turning his lips. Continuing on with the very downhearted roles, it's very rare to find a scene of him genuinely sad. But of course, baby girls, you know me, of course I found some. When he gets interrogated by the DEA, watch how he enters the elevator and all he does is look up. But there's very subtle things that give away his defeat, him opening his eyes a little bit more than usual, the light finger tapping you can see in this shot. Once again, very internal movements. You can't see it on their face, but you can tell that's what they're thinking.
Look at his face! Look at his face! I can see the emotion in his eyes. How is that possible?
Besides the acting itself, let's also not forget this man has some of the best vocals in the entire show. The way he speaks and narrates his words is powerful because he doesn't rush them whatsoever. He doesn't stumble.
He simply bears up, and he does it.
And if you've seen The Boys recently, that same pattern follows in solid speeches like this one when he's talking to Homeland. Giancarlo Esposito. There is no reason you also don't belong in Oscar worthy. I would put you in the lower end of it because I really believe Anna Gunn and Aaron Paul are on a different level here, but sweetheart, so are you. And at least this ranking was pretty simple to give because this next actor's ranking is going to be very hard to judge. We're going to be talking about RJ Mitte and the complexities behind an actor with a disability. But quickly before him, let's talk about a very underrated character that may have the best acting in the whole show when it comes to her nervous acting. Her name is Lydia, and clearly Gus's acting rubbed off on her because there's two weird ways she stood out. Her forehead and her confidence. Just trust me, just trust. Let's examine when the DEA barged her office. She gave off a strong representation of breaking down. Watch her forehead wrinkles here as she squints her eyebrows. She does this in a pattern and then directly widens her eyes, which leads to an expressionless face.
Okay.
the warehouse. Fixed security and pulled the barrels and drove the truck. You can't expect me to do that stuff.
This two-piece combo right here, I'm actually definitely stealing for myself. It makes looking shocked so easy to do. And I love how by the end of the scene, her head is basically tilted all the way down, truly signaling how crippling Ron's arrest was to her. And coincidentally, this little chin drop is exactly what Gus also did when he was vulnerable. But me and you, let's get juicier. When diving deeper into her eyes, watch how the team confronts her for putting a fake tracker on her medley. It's so beautiful to see how expressionate she can become. The wide open hands, the stretched eyes as she begs them to make a deal with her. It suits her face perfectly to play something like this. But now there's a problem. When she isn't cuffed to a table and she actually has some sort of authority, her entire acting shifts, but maybe not in the best way. Looking at episode 5x8, she's striking an international deal with Walt. She could have squinted at him to show curiosity, talked more bold for confidence, but it's kind of a boring, rushed pitch. I did like how she whispers a lot of her words, which gave them more emphasis and made us want to pay attention.
Things are tied up nicely. This is what I do. You understand?
And it's so funny because she does these whispers once again at the car wash in episode 5x9. Which kind of leads me to believe she's definitely a way better nervous type of actor than when she's trying to be bold or intimidated. And because of that flaw, she belongs in the good category. Now let's talk about RJ Mitte, the actor with the saddest backstory, getting diagnosed with cerebral palsy, a full body disability at only 3 years old, and then becoming responsible financially for his household at only 13 because his mom also got paralyzed. But don't start crying now because his struggles didn't go unnoticed, because he'd only acted in one official role before AMC would scout him out as Flynn for Breaking Bad, and that role, crazily enough, would be him as a background actor in Hannah Montana. But why cast such a new actor in this big of a role? An actor with a severe inability. If you didn't know, cerebral palsy affects the control of your body, which you can see is very present in Flynn throughout the show. So please pay attention to this very important question we have to ask. How does someone become a great controlled actor if their body moves on its own? Well, let's answer that question by looking at when his dad tells him he has cancer again. Examine the quick frowns, the random lip movements, the stuttering. Please note that his condition is causing the fidgety body, but he's adding his own facial expressions to relay that shock. In a Reddit post, RJ even commented how his condition impacts his acting. Pay attention to his hesitancy when Marie and Skyler are telling him the truth about his dad. He's repeating words a bunch and he's sharply looking back and forth between the two sisters, which sort of reflects the betrayal and hurt he's feeling finding out what his dad could actually be. And then when he stands up, the jittery hand in his pocket, the shaking face when he's making the call, all very well landed. On top of that, in the same crazy episode when he's calling the cops on his own dad, have you ever noticed he genuinely stutters every single word in the sentence?
My dad, he put a knife on my mom, he attacked her, he's dangerous. I think he might have killed somebody.
It's a crazy detail that just elevates how overwhelmed he must be feeling here, going against his own blood father. So now we can see, yes, his condition does impact it, but he uses it as a supplement and he does other things to make it great. But being brutally honest, compared to the rest of his co-stars, he belongs in the good category. Another great actor we have to talk about is this baby right here. Look at the way she repeatedly cries in the same frequency. So majestic, and the way she dude, I'm not. Ladies and gentlemen, this right here is the final ranking of every actor in Breaking Bad. Let me know in the comments which actor you agree or disagree with. Here's a full playlist of all the other shows actors I've reviewed in very much depth. Make sure you guys subscribe. I love you guys so much.